Hello and welcome to Runners Only with Dom Harvey. On this episode, Garth Barfoot.
People older than me or my same age, they've given away because it's not a challenge for them anymore. Whereas I'm so lucky, it's a challenge.
I like finishing.
The marathon, it's such a big challenge.
Yeah. Garth is an 85-year-old athlete, and at the time of recording this, he was about to take part in the 2022 London Marathon. He's had an epic career in real estate, working for the firm that his dad started in 1923, Barfoot and Thompson. But it's through Garth's feats in running and triathlon that I know him. He's a regular at endurance events like marathons and Ironman distance triathlons. And as a point of interest, he's done the iconic Rotorua Marathon 17 times. And what makes Garth even more remarkable, I think, is his entry to the sport. He didn't start competing until his late 50s. Now, most listeners to this podcast will still be younger than Garth was when he started. And there's something about that I find really cool. It means that for you and for me, it is never too late to do something new, something courageous, something that scares the shit out of you. All right, let's get into it. Runners Only with Garth Barfoot.
Hey, Runners Only, yeah, let's get it started. Hey, this is Runners Only with Dom Harvey. Fast paced, slow and steady, anywhere you coming. Just wanna connect for everyone who loves running. This is Runners Only, yeah, let's get it started. This is Runners Only with Dom Harvey. Fast paced, slow and steady, anywhere you coming. Just wanna connect for everyone who loves running. Hey, Runners Only with Dom Harvey.
Runners Only with Dom Harvey and Garth Barfoot. G'day, mate. Thank you. Hi. Thank you very much for joining me in my podcast studio. Really appreciate you being here today.
Thanks for the coffee.
How that was the deal. You said you'll come around and do it if I make you a coffee. I don't normally make them. I prefer to. There's a cafe just over the road, so I generally buy it rather than make the Nespresso pods. So is it okay?
Yeah, well, I'm a good real estate agent. When I came into your living room, I saw there was a coffee making machine, so I put my order in, and you obliged.
Yeah. Is it drinkable? Is it okay?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we'll just get you nice and close into it. You're an amazing guy. First of all, I need to let you know you're not the oldest athlete I've had on the podcast so far. I think you're maybe the third oldest. Number one, Arch Jelly, who I spoke to when he was 99. The second oldest.
Well, they're having a celebratory race for him this weekend out at Pukekohe. Last year it's going to be open.
Right.
And they've got 100 runners doing 1 kilometre each. And that's full up.
Amazing. So we are recording this in August 2022, and actually the day before his 100th birthday. He's incredible, by the way. I spoke to him a couple of months ago. Mentally very, very sharp, and still physically very fit as well. I feel like you might go down the same track.
No, I don't think so. I think my wife forgets a lot of things, but I'm sure if you asked her, she'd say her husband forgets a lot of things, and we're about the same age.
Really? Do you notice it? Do you think your memory's slipping somewhat?
Yeah, yes, quite definitely. But then again, I've got so many more things to draw on.
Well, from my dealings with you and setting up this podcast the last couple of days, you're one of the most on-top people I know. Like I send you a text, you call straight back, and you're busy and you're active. Like we rescheduled this from yesterday because you had a dentist appointment, then you were catching up with a mate for lunch. You're a very active dude.
Yes, well, I'm just fortunate. I've got so many things going on in my life. Sometimes I feel like a juggler, juggling things.
So do you still work at all these days or no? You've retired completely?
No, I retired 5 years ago. I get consulted, but only about historical things.
All right.
It's Garth, do you remember? But they don't say, Garth, what do you think of the idea of Barfoot and Thompson expanding into Hamilton or...
it's like a fact check from way back. Hey, can you remember?
I remember, yes, you remember this, and I remember that. And to help me memories, I look at the death notices in the paper. That helps me. It's a sad thing about getting old, is there's more people on the death notices.
Oh, it's a part of life, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The remarkable thing about you, and this is part of the reason I wanted you on the podcast, because I think... a lot of people that listen to this that maybe aren't that active could get a lot from this. You started triathlon, you came to the sport very late, like 50...
Yes, so I really got into sport around the bays. The younger Thompsons, if you like, said we should do round the bays as a company social event. And that was my first race. And I was rather peeved. I thought I did as well as I could. I got beaten by my wife. I got beaten by my brother, who's still alive, it's 91. That was my first ever race. And,
so this is, for anyone that doesn't know, or maybe that's overseas, Round the Bays is New Zealand's biggest fun run. It's in Auckland, just along Tamaki Drive each year. It's about 9Ks.
At that time, it was a very big thing. It used to be front page. It was sponsored by the evening paper, and it was on a Saturday so that they could produce the news of it on the front page of the edition when it came out in the afternoon. So it was a very big thing. They gave you, as they'd probably do now, certificates, and I was rather peeved that when the certificates arrived at the office, the Thompson people put them in the bin because they didn't want to encourage competitiveness amongst the staff. I used to retrieve them from the bin and then work out people's time. And I rang up Irene Bates, who was at our St Helier's office at the time, I was a search clerk, and congratulated her time. And she said, well, yes, it was a good time. I think it was her husband, Gary Bates. And he said, no, I caught a bus to Britomart here. At that stage, started by Victoria Park. And she parked a car on the rise there by Judges Bay.
Right.
And that's how she got that's how she beat me.
So how old were you at the time when you started running with Round the Bays?
I must have been around about 50.
So what were you like before then? Were you reasonably inactive? Were you just too busy working?
No, I had a good... I did rather like my parents. They came from England, they came to New Zealand, and they wanted to do things in a life that was new to them. So they embraced the outdoor touch of New Zealand, and with this, he was a real estate agent too, my father, so he liked the walking, the active part. I mean, during the war, when you couldn't get petrol, he went with my elder brothers on cycling holidays with the packs on the bike. So we were all very much into that, and at the age of maybe 11 or something or other, I was piggybacked by my father through the Milford Tunnel. It was half open, and I think he found it quite hard because we got a lift back in a public works truck. Yeah. So, it was all in the family. It's continued in my own family with my own 3 children, my wife. We're all quite sort of athletic or into outdoor things anyway.
We'll talk about the athletic stuff first, and then we'll talk about business. So you start with Round the Bays, which is a fairly easy run for most people.
Don't expect too much on business, because I say to people, even when I was in my prime in the job, I said I know more about what's happened in real estate than probably anyone else in Auckland, but as to what's going to happen tomorrow, I don't know any more than the barber.
Oh, no, I'm not asking you to do any predictions or anything, but 60 years in the family business and growing it from a reasonably small thing with something like 80 staff to how it was when you left it, I think it's remarkable and it's worth touching upon.
Yeah, well, 2,500, and I think it's grown since I've left. We've got more branches. I just happen to be there.
60 years in the same job is not just being there. Absolutely not. Okay, so Round the Bays, you start with that, which is like an 8K, 9K fun run. Then when did you start triathlon? Were triathlons even a thing? So when was this? The late 1980s?
Yes, it was a demonstration sport in the Commonwealth Games when they held in Auckland. Mm-hmm. I think that was
1990
on the Waterfront Road, and that was before I got into triathlon. But after that, I got in.
Right, so you saw that at the Commonwealth Games, and did you think, I could...
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. All I can remember is my son was at Birkenhead College, it's called now, and the teacher was keen on Ironman, and they were asked to provide a tent at St Helier's. So I didn't even know what an Ironman was. A couple of years later, there I am competing in it.
Yeah, so how old were you when you did your first Ironman?
Oh, what would I be? Probably late 50s, 57.
This to me is inspirational. This to me says to anyone that's listening to this, whatever state you're in now and whatever you're not doing, it's never too late to start. There's that saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It completely defies that. Like doing an Ironman in your late 50s seems just mind-boggling. So for anyone that is not familiar with Ironman, what is it exactly? It's how long's the swim? You get in the water first, what is it, 3Ks, 4Ks?
Almost 4Ks.
Yeah. Yes. And then you're on the bike for
180k, yeah.
And then a full marathon.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're doing that for the first time in your late 50s?
Oh, well, when you're not fast, but you can get there.
Yeah, I think that's remarkable. And how many did you end up doing?
People ask me that question, but I say it depends how you count them. There's various ways of counting them. You can count the number you enter, the number of times you get to the start line, and then as you get on, it's the number of times you finish them, and then as you get on further, it's the number of times you finish the bike leg, and as you get on even further, it's the number of times you finish the swim leg, because all these legs have got time cut-offs. And I think the last one I did, I got hauled out of the water.
Oh,
sometimes the conditions aren't easy.
I mean, you're out there doing it. You're out there doing this incredible physical feat that 99.9% of the population would never even attempt. Does it sort of hurt as you get older and you realise that you're not going to make these cut-offs, or is it just something that you have to accept?
Sometimes people say you should retire when you're at the top, and that sounds most impressive, but of course the problem is when you're at the top, or what with hindsight is the top, you don't know it is the top. So you think, well, one more race, I think I can go faster. It's unbelievable that my time in that first race, when I made a number of errors, was my fastest ever time. If you told me that after the end of the first race, I never would have believed you. But no matter how hard I try, I couldn't get down to that time again. It was 13 hours, 45 minutes.
Right. Yeah, and you did okay. Like you won some age groups and things.
I went on to do altogether about 99 men and started at about 30. Took a long time for it to sink in. The one after my first bike accident, the article on the Herald was veteran Ironman days are over, or something like that. It was not headlines, but across double column. Yeah. And everyone gave me sympathy except my son, who said, "Dad, what makes you think your Ironman days weren't already over?"
So when did you complete your last Ironman? Like at 80?
Oh, yes, it'll be about not long after that. So what's I'm 86 now? Yeah, 80. About 80.
Do you know if that's a world record for the oldest person to complete an Ironman?
No, they at that stage about 84, 85. But as you get on, it gets very thin. And some years they don't even have anyone over 80 that complete.
So just by starting and finishing, you win the age group.
Yeah, but it's, by the time you get to that stage, it's finishing within the time limit. That's why you can say I'm choosing the London Marathon as my next big goal, because this year they've done away with time limits and you've got 24 hours to do it. So,
is that so?
Yeah, that they wanted it to be all-inclusive. In other words, to take people in who've got physical disabilities, and they think the only way to encourage them is to do away with the time limits. So, because I'm very lucky, because, if I do cross the line, I'll be the oldest person who ever crossed the line. London is going 40 years, and the oldest person who's crossed the line is 85.
Do you think that's because they had time cut-offs previously?
Well, probably did, and of course it's not. It's not the event is. You got to have some sort of category to get in.
Yes,
but we're lucky. They seem to think because we're visitors, we should be made welcome, and so we're allowed to get in if you're from overseas country. Oh,
so your last marathon was the 2021 Rotorua Marathon? Is that
That was the last one I finished.
Yes.
And at that race I was last, and it was about 8 3/4 hours. So
it's a long time on your feet.
I got the prize, or should I say, I got my name on the trophy for the oldest finisher trophy. So I don't know whether that's something I'm going to hand to my grandchildren, but I've got to bring you up to date, because that was 2021 and now it's 2022. So I've done, London will be my third marathon that I've entered. I did one in Wellington, but I failed to finish that one. And I did one 2 weeks ago, Taupo, and failed to finish that.
Failed to finish it physically, or because of the time cut-off?
No, physically.
Right.
Yeah, they had good time races, but when you're 86, you can't take things for granted. You don't know how a day will go, and people said, go and see your doctor, get your medication round up, because I've got on medication after my heart valve transplant. And we could go into education, but it's not a magic wand. It's not like a wound or a broken bone.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm like Hamish Carter. I can remember the great fuss about Hamish Carter, who was the poster boy for the Sydney Olympics, and triathlon was regarded as the best chance we had of getting a gold medal, you know. And then on the day, what's the phrase? He failed to fire, and so they interviewed him to find out the reason, and he said, "Oh, when I woke up in the morning in my hotel room, I knew it wasn't going to be a good day." And the public in New Zealand were outraged. They didn't demand a royal inquiry, but it was something
close.
Like that.
Yeah, God, wow.
So when I didn't finish those 2 marathons, people said, "Oh, you must do something about it. Something's wrong." You know? And I said, "Well, I'm 86. You've got to take the good with the bad, and you have good days and bad days."
Oh, the fact that you're out there on the getting yourself physically in shape for these things and making it to the start line, I think is that's no mean feat on its own. With the Taupo marathon a couple of weeks ago, how many kilometres in did you get?
Got to halfway.
Right. And then did you just not feel great, or?
Well, you sort of get dizzy and you start getting uncoordinated. It's just a risk I take. I mean, to be on blood thinners, it's pretty remarkable. I can still compete with an artificial hip and pins on my other hip, and goodness gracious me, everything's fading away. The only thing left is my voice. I seem to have the loudest voice. Not quite as loud as the guy who's interviewing me.
That's me.
Yeah, that's him. I'm talking about Dom. Yeah.
When I had Arch Jelly on the podcast, he's got hearing aids like you, and he said to me, "Oh, your voice is very loud. I'm going to have to take them off." Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I do have a very loud voice.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, on this desk here, that's your fader right up to the top, and that's mine all the way down there.
Oh, okay.
So what does your running style look like now? Is it sort of like a walk? Would you say it's a walk, or is it still a run?
I call it a struggle. I mean, I struggle along. So it's because I know the time, I can walk at so much, but I can't walk faster than 12 minutes a kilometre. If I struggle, as I call it, I can get to 10 minutes a kilometre.
Yeah.
And if I run, I can get it down to about 8 minutes a kilometre.
Right.
So like this morning, I went from my home in Island Bay, Birkenhead, to the Birkenhead Wharf, which is quite a lot of hill in it, maybe about 100 metres of climbing or something like that. But first time in about 4 months, I got my time below 10 minutes a K. That's why I'm feeling chipper during this interview, full of optimism. So London's obviously, it's a long way to travel for a marathon. So are you determined to finish it, like come hell or high water? Yeah, well, I find it's like a lot of things. Half of you wants publicity because that's means you can't go back, and the other half wants to be under the headlights, so that no one knows if you don't succeed. So I think I've elected to be in the former category, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this podcast. Yeah, well, regardless of what happens, it's like anyone would only want the best for you. The fact that you're a man in your late 80s and you're still out there doing it, nobody wants to... Everyone's rooting for you. And if you don't manage to complete it for whatever reason, there would just be sadness from people, sort of on behalf of you, I guess. Yeah. Well, I did actually think I made a good story. Here's this 86-year-old who couldn't finish the first 2 easy marathons he's done this year. How would he get on? Oh, no, come on. I sound as though I was doing it for publicity. Oh, no. Honestly, when it comes to your modesty, you need to pull your head in a little bit. Like the fact that you are, A, still alive, and B, physically able to do these things that, many people quarter of your age couldn't even do. It's incredible. It's a bit embarrassing. I was doing the Auckland Marathon one year with a group from out of town and going along the waterfront road there where there's not enough people calling out. And after a while, these ladies I was running with says, "Oh, you seem to be well known, Garth." I felt a bit sorry for them. No one's cheered for them; they all cheered for me. Embarrassing.
Well, you are so well known. And I do feel like it's you had great success in business, but I feel like this is like a completely separate thing. Like people are cheering you not because they know you as the real estate dude, but because you've just been a familiar face on these running and triathlon events in the circuit for such a long time.
Yes,
decades.
You can't help but get sort of well known because I train on roads these days. And when I was younger, I always used to go on the side of the footpath which had less people on. Maybe it was in the shade, but these days I go on the side of the footpath which has more people on because there's people to talk to or exchange eye glances with. I'm quite sociable now. It's quite changed.
So do you think London will be your last full marathon?
On dull days, I think it will be.
Double days. How often
the temptation, of course, is, as I said, you never know when you're on top. So, fancy being the oldest person. They've probably had 500,000 people do it, and so it's tempted to keep on. But I've entered the off-road marathon at Motatapu, Queenstown.
Oh, Arrowtown, yeah.
Arrowtown,
right.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, over Shania Twain, or it was Shania Twain's land.
Yeah. So what are you doing there? What distance?
Oh, the full. You're not expecting me to do anything but the full distance. Well, I'm not a wimp. Whatever else I might be, I'm not a wimp. I'm not a wimp.
That's it's beautiful and it's scenic, but it's horrible. It's so steep. It's real challenging. That's amazing. But
I reckon if they can get a golf cart over it, because that's where the first aid people, I should be able to do it. But I'm still trying to get my friends to come with me. But they all say, I couldn't do that distance, Garth.
Yeah. When you say trying to get your friends to come with you, what age? Are they younger than you, same age?
Well, what I call they're younger people, but of course they're in their 70s.
Right. Pushing yourself physically, it's been such a big part of your life since your 50s, like Ironman, marathons, things like that. So do you think as you get older and even into your 90s, you'll keep pushing yourself, but the distance will get smaller, like, say, half marathons or 10 kilometres?
Well, it's going to be a dilemma, really. The marathons is the one that gets publicity, the glamour, and the half is, I used to think it was beneath my dignity to do these park runs. I would never want to do those. They're not, they're not orientated towards competitive people. But I do the park run now. I do it at the Sherwood Park up at Browns Bay. And I got into that because someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, Garth, do you know anyone, Barfoot and Thompson? Who would I contact to get some sponsorship? And I said, I've been retired 4 years. And then I said, well, why don't you ask me? I'm on the rich list. And they only wanted, they only wanted, in my language, a defibrillator.
Yeah, what are they worth?
Yeah, well, no, I didn't know what they were worth, but I sort of thought, well, if anyone's going to need a defibrillator, it'll be me.
It's like insurance.
So it wasn't rock insurance. I couldn't say yes fast enough.
Yeah,
because I had to get that to get the okay to run the race. But they did have an incident.
One incident, and it's paid for itself already, hasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Did you say you're on the rich list?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah. Well,
like the NBR,
but the only way they got rid of me was stop doing the rich list.
All right.
The rich list doesn't run anymore.
So is that like Forbes or NBR or something?
NBR,
National Business Review.
Yeah.
So I always wondered about that. Like, do they get the figures right? Like, do you read it and go, I'm worth way more than that, or that's a bullshit figure?
Well, it's always a bit hard anyway. Even I've got the high net worth people from the Inland Revenue. They're doing this survey, and I don't sort of carry those things in my head, or it's a bit hard to know. But it certainly enabled me. I've sponsored. I mean, the company sponsors a lot of things.
What did NBR think you were worth?
We used to look at it to find out. I think we had a rival real estate agent firm, so I think they kept it to them and us the same. So,
what was it, like 100 million, 50 million?
Well, of course, it's Barfoot and Thompson,
right?
See, so I'm sure it'd be 100 million, or that's families.
But you're not a flashy guy at all. Like, you've lived in the same house your entire life.
Yeah.
What sort of car do you drive?
Oh, I drive a Lexus. Yeah.
Yeah. So nice, but no, it's not. You're not getting around in a McLaren or a Ferrari.
No.
So when you go to London, please tell me you'll be flying business or first class, though.
Oh, well, yeah, but what happened was I'm going with a group, and you probably gathered I'm a sort of sociable guy, and I thought if I travel, what was it? I think it's premium economy, I'll have more chance of meeting my friends. So,
So you're in premium economy?
I mean, we went on a luxury cruise, because you think, oh, that's life. But honestly, by the time of 3 weeks, I was looking forward to it to end.
Why? Were you just bored, or?
Oh, well, I wanted to get back to my running, and I used to walk around the swimming pool on the ship, but of course the swimming pools aren't very good. And I started to get dizzy, so I had to reverse and it's rather hard to work once the seas get rough. I get seasick quite easily. So, yeah, anyway.
So what do you do with your money? Like you can't take it with you when you're gone.
Oh, well, a lot of people are grateful for it. She's a big sponsor of the Olympics. I'm not a big sponsor, but a sponsor. Yeah. The Olympics and the triathlon and those sorts of things, medical.
I know you've done a lot for Auckland City as well.
Yeah,
in terms
like any other parent, you lend money to your children. Hopefully they won't pay it back. The houses they bought, so they've all owned real estate.
Yeah. So this is the weird thing about you. So you're a real estate guy, but you've only lived in the one house. So
that's right. I only lived in one house and never owned a rental. Never been a landlord.
Why is that?
When I come home from work, I don't want to be bothered with being a landlord.
So whereabouts do you live?
Island Bay, Birkenhead.
Right. So you and your wife, you bought this, bought it as a section, and you built
the section when we got engaged.
When was that?
I suppose it was 51 years ago.
Right.
52 years ago.
Can you remember the price of the section?
Yes. We got the house built for, the contract was $32,000. The land might have been $6,000, $9,000 for the land.
Wow, so like $40,000 all up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Would have gone up a little bit since then.
I would think so.
So how come you've never moved? What, is it just? Are you a sentimental guy? Is it memories?
We're sort of keen on gardening, and it's your life, isn't it? It was a bit like moving into a retirement home. We were only considering the retirement village near us because it becomes your life. All the tracks and the walks and the swimming, the facilities and the people. Yeah, I'm really quite sociable.
It must be really nice for your adult children that their mum and dad are still together and still in the house that they were born. I mean, and there's so many memories there.
Yeah, and of course it's very nice for the parents that their children have chosen to live. They all live in Auckland, and 2 out of 3 live on the North Shore, and the other one's not too far away. So great advantage during COVID.
So it was your dad that started Barfoot and Thompson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and was it just called Barfoot Real Estate?
He trained as an engineer in England, and then he served in the army. Then he couldn't get a job. The only person in his year or class at the university got a job, and it was a job in the gasworks, and that was his father was the chief exec or the boss of the gasworks. So it just really showed how hard it was to get a job in engineering in that time in England. Yeah. So he just came to New Zealand for his father's health, and just walking along Broadway and Newmarket and saw this real estate agent with a, let's say it was Smith & Brown, and the word Brown was crossed out. So he knocked on the door and said, "You're looking for a new partner?" And the guy said, "Yes." So, of course, it was before licensing. So that was how it started. Oh, it's just as simple as that. And then he worked out, of course, the partner, if you like, had a phone. And the phone was so useful because it was very good for what is now called off-course betting. which was illegal, of course, in those days.
Right.
My father didn't believe in illegal things, so he brought his partner out.
Right, so
that's the start of it, 1923. And
what year
so we're coming up now 100 years. So I said to my friends when I retired, well, I'll try and stay around to 2023, stay around for Centennial, and after that I have to take stock of my place on earth.
So he starts, and then it's called Barfoot, and then when does the Thompson thing come along?
Came along. Well, Thompson was a salesperson they engaged, and he was a great salesperson. And then the war came, so he enlisted, and they thought he was so good that the best way to make sure he came back was to make him a partner.
Oh, so this is the Second World War.
Yeah, Second World War.
Yeah.
So he went up to Fiji with the Air Force, but before he went, they said, "Well, you can come back. You can buy it." But it wasn't given to him; he had to buy it. But Thompson came in. So now, of course, we got Thompson as the managing director.
So what year were you born?
So I was born in 1936.
36. Do you remember much about the wartime? You would have been like 9 or 10 years old, I guess, or...
Yeah, I was at primary school during the war.
Yeah.
What I can remember is my elder brothers, of which had 3, we made an air raid shelter trench, as people did in those days, and they put me in it and then went away and wouldn't help me out. So
whereabouts? Like on your section?
Yeah, where we lived, in the back garden.
Right. Right, like a proper bunker.
Not a ditch.
Right.
Air raid ditch. And my father joined the outbreak of war because he was in the First World War, and he didn't think much of the New Zealand Army or something, because he wrote to England and said he was an officer in the First World War, and he offered his services. I don't think they were interested in having a 45-year-old come from New Zealand. But never mind, so he joined the Home Guard, but he thought that was a waste of time. But he said they had to have it because it kept the morale up.
Being a young boy growing up in New Zealand in wartime, was it a scary thing, or did New Zealand still feel quite safe because we were quite far removed?
I think I was too young to get any concept of fear.
Yeah.
They were the United States troops. They were a novelty. They had sweets or whatever they had. We got invited to a lunch, at the Commonwealth Park, and there was ice cream and wafer sandwiches. I've seen those before.
Isn't that weird that as a young boy, that's your enduring memory of the war?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so then you finished school. How do you end up at your dad's firm?
After the war, the very severe price controls, he thought it was only a matter of time before we followed Moscow and everything was state-owned. So he saw no future in real estate. So they were quite keen on me to consider farming as a career. So I think we went to Otahu College. They had a farm course, secondary schools, and I think we went to Mount Albert Grammar. They had a farm course. Because we went to Massey University outside of Palmerston North. Mm-hmm. So it was quite a couple of years there. As I got near the top of the school, the government changed, and then real estate became an attractive career in my parents' eyes. And I just went along with it.
So it seems like you going to university to do agriculture, that was because your parents wanted to. So you were just sort of... Was that just how it was at the time, that your parents would tell you...
Yes. Well, we had a cow. Produced milk, had a very good knowledge of farming.
Yeah. So how old were you when you started at what was then Barfoot and Thompson?
So I was about 21, it was 1956.
Right, and then and that was it. That was your entire working life.
Yes, I mean, of course, I did OE. Of course, in those days, very good for part-time work during the holidays. So I worked in the freezing works.
So whereabouts did you do your OE, your overseas experience?
England, because that's what people did. They went to England.
So
I did that too, and I got a job as a teacher. Not that because I was trained as a teaching, but you could. All they required were the reference, and you had to be free of TB. So we had the TB test or X-ray test, and then they wrote home to Maurice Thompson for a reference that I was okay. Mm-hmm. And because I was a Commonwealth citizen, that made me a teacher. But of course, it didn't make me a teacher. And there I was, went the first assignment, and well, it lasted about 5 minutes, and they started to make a noise. 10 minutes, the noise got louder, and 15 minutes later, the teacher from the adjoining classroom came in and really told the class off and said how they should be respectful for the new teacher. So after a week or so, I worked out my priorities. The first priority was not to let the class make so much noise that the teacher from next door had to come in.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
The second problem was to stop them fighting with each other or pinching each other's property. That was the second priority. And third priority was to teach them something. So, it was experience.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite good, but it did give me, I was very shy up to then.
Oh, really? How do you go from being a shy person to not being a shy person?
Yeah, well, I was very young, youngest in the family, and we were out of zone, so that made me what I call socially backward, because you tended to be family-orientated in your recreation. And all the boys at grammar school, they talked about going to the dancing school and this and that. It was completely over my head. And then at the university, I found that I was good at tramping because of my parents and all the stuff we'd done. So it was sort of natural for me to come up through the ranks quite quickly and be the club captain of the tramping club. And that sort of just started to build my confidence, if you like, with hindsight. Yeah. Now, of course, I can just take a microphone up in front of 1,000 people and talk, because the one thing I have got left is a loud voice. Oh!
So do you think that sort of confidence or being comfortable in your own skin just comes naturally with age, or did you have to work hard on it?
No, I think it's just built up over the years.
Yeah.
You sort of sometimes think that things go better. I hate these people. They start talking before the crowd is quietened. But when I shout, people jump. You know. It's the only thing left for me. I can't see as well. I can't hear as well. I can't eat as well. I won't go on.
Yeah.
I've got my hair, especially during COVID, very useful.
Yeah.
It grows very long.
And your mind is still fabulous. Hey, I know you mentioned before that your memory's not what it used to be, but I don't know. I feel like it's still great. Is aging? Do you find it frustrating? Like
No, because you get doors open for you.
What do you mean?
So if you like, it's not the thrill of winning; it's the thrill of taking part. That sort of thing. You sort of get a lot of satisfaction out walking this morning, lovely day, and there I am with my gloves and thermal because my blood's thin and I can feel the cold a lot more, but I'm still doing it out there.
Yeah, oh, you are.
Satisfaction.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you mentioned before you've got a brother that's in his 90s. Is there just longevity in your family?
It's good, yeah. All my brothers, two have passed on, but they all got to 80.
What do you reckon? How many more birthdays do you think you've got in you?
I'll just get the London Marathon over first.
What about your wife? When did you guys have been together for 50-something years?
50 years, yeah.
Yeah, so how did you guys meet?
Oh, we met through the tramping club. Well, she was a skier, but that didn't help because she was on ski patrol, she was being a doctor, and she'd been in Europe a lot longer getting her anaesthetic qualification, and so she was used to skiing in Switzerland. And she could ski far better than me. She liked my tramping ability. And we compromised and got together.
Yeah, do you remember much? Was it love at first sight, or was it sort of a thing, like the world is so small now in terms of like the internet, like it's like a global community, but I suppose back then you had your immediate sort of circle or groups and you just sort of like paired off with one of them. And I'm thinking of like my mum's family. My mum's one of 14 from Levin, and they just all married other people in Levin, usually from the same church group. Yeah. Was it like that with you and your wife, or was it like love at first sight, or?
No. Well, it certainly wasn't as far as she's concerned, because she went out with my brother. And when that didn't progress, maybe she took up with me. I can't say.
Yeah, well, it's worked out all right. What do you think? What do you think the key is to a successful and enduring marriage? Is there a secret?
No, I don't think there's a secret. I mean, it's up to your personality, really. I think you can adjust, but you have to want to adjust. And sometimes I want to adjust, but I don't want to adjust all the time. So at the moment, she thinks I'm obsessed with walking. And she's right, of course.
Does she? You mentioned before that she was the one that got you into it in the first place.
Yeah, that's right. She got me into it because the teacher I referred to earlier got my son into it from college. And then he said, Mum, come along and I'll guarantee you a prize. And it was early days for triathlon, and they were a modern sport. So they were, I think, the first sport to introduce equal prizes for men and women. And they had the prizes because the tobacco people were very keen on sponsoring us. It was a new sport, and Rothmans were quite a sponsor. I mean, like Peter Snell, he was sponsored by Rothmans, so of course he was in some embarrassment in later life. But
the tobacco companies sponsored everything, didn't they?
Yeah.
Everything. I remember as a young boy, I suppose in the 1980s, like going to cricket matches, and there was Benson and Hedges everywhere.
Yeah.
So she got you into the sport, and now does she sort of regret it because you're obsessed?
Ask you that.
Yeah. So she's travelling to London with you?
No. She's watched me. She's watched our children. She's watched our grandchildren. She's done her time on earth watching her family.
Yeah. So anyone that's listening to this, that's I suppose any age, because you were such a late starter. What would your message be to them, to someone that's listening to this that doesn't do much in the way of physical stuff at the moment?
Well, I think it's very much the old story of sliding doors. If you see an opportunity that you've got an advantage in, that you're better than someone else, I mean, I suppose you've got to be competitive. Try it out, and just follow the advice from other people who do that particular activity, which is really what I did. Yeah,
but do you think that someone that's listening to this, that's say, middle age, that hasn't done any endurance sport, do you think they could? Anyone could do an Ironman, or does it take a special sort of person?
I don't think it takes a special sort of person. When I joined the athletic club, in my mid-50s, I found that they sort of tailed off, and I worked out that I was the only one who didn't have joint or ankle, knee problems because I was fresh to the sport. Because in those days, there was no such thing as running shoes or something you bought when you went overseas. So perhaps I was lucky starting late.
Yeah.
And, there's lots of people who've done it all their lives, but there's also lots of people who start late. There's no one road.
Yeah, but I suppose you started in your late 50s, but I suppose a lot of people would be that age and think, I'm just too old to do that now. My moment's gone. But you sort of defy that, which I think is remarkable.
Yeah. And there's a disadvantage of doing it all the time. I mean, there's people older than me or my same age, and they've given away because it's not a challenge for them anymore. Whereas I'm so lucky, it's a challenge.
You just like finishing
the marathon. It's a big challenge.
Yeah. Hey, well, I think you're inspirational, and I've seen you at numerous running events, and it's always great to see you out on the road, and it's long may that continue. But don't be scared of going shorter though. Like I felt like you sort of turned your nose up before when I mentioned like half marathons or 10Ks. But there's no shame in those shorter distances, is there?
Oh no. I mean, I've done masses of half things. As I said, I'm doing the 5K park run tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So no, not at all. No. But we're doing triathlons. Of course, I was swimming and biking, but I find I'm not really excelling in those sports. I have trouble keeping warm in the swim, because at my age, your heart doesn't pump your blood around so much, and heart thinners. And then biking, I'm less confident now with my balance, So whereas running is pretty safe, so I think I'll stick to that for a while.
Oh, good stuff.
Having said that, I'm off to Abu Dhabi in November to represent New Zealand in triathlon. So.
Oh shit! Oh, are you actually? Is that what distance?
The World Championship.
So what's that?
That's something like 750 run and a 20k bike and 5k run. Yeah. Not in the grave yet. No, not at all.
That is remarkable. Good for you. How do you find the cycling at your age and balancing on a bike?
Balancing, and balancing and traffic. I mean, living in Auckland,
Yeah.
it's growing. I mean, nowadays, even after 5 years, went up to Kumu in a car to watch my children play football. And I thought, geez, there's more traffic on Saturday morning now than there was 5 years ago. It's just that running I can do well.
You've had a couple of bike crashes over the years, yeah?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And I'm also conscious, as my first surgeon said, if you go biking, you will have accidents.
Yeah, I mean, even...
And the recovery my wife's had a knee replacement, and her recovery has been quite slow because she's my age. And so I'm rather conscious that if I have another severe accident, it'll take too long, or maybe the surgeons might think I'm not worth saving.
Oh, come on. Yeah, so what were the bike accidents? Was it like involving a motor vehicle, or was it just like a fall?
The first one involved a motor vehicle. And this is the one that made me famous because I very wisely had the bike accident at the beginning of the National Bike Week, and they wanted to, TV1 wanted to find someone who had an accident, I think, or something rather. So suddenly North Shore Hospital saw a camera crew and they interviewed me, and it got to be on the national news.
Yeah. Amazing.
Made me famous. Yeah. Well, because not the only thing that made me famous. Went down to New Plymouth for a race for the national championship, and because I was training for Ironman at that stage, so I arranged to bike back from New Plymouth after the champs. So I did the championship, and before the race, the announcer said, "Oh, anyone got any stories about the races?" Because he was from Auckland, and my son, without my knowledge or blessing, went to him and said, "Oh yeah, Dad's going to bike back to Auckland." And so
what's that, like 400 Ks?
Yeah. And so he told me the announcer. He put it over the loudspeaker, and then the president of Tri New Zealand was coming down on Sunday morning for a race. The race was on Saturday, and he came down through the Arakino Gorge, and as he was coming through, he saw the cyclist, and he thought, "Gee, that looks like Garth Barfoot." And he thought, "No, it can't be him. He's racing in New Plymouth." So when he got to New Plymouth, yeah, where's Garth? Oh, he's Garth. And then I was. They said, "Oh, take the cell phone." The cell phones were quite unusual. I didn't want to lose it. I put it in the bike, in the back pocket of my bicycle behind the seat, and I think I used it. And then when I got to the next stop, I'd lost it. It bounced out on the vibration. And so, because it was supplied by work, because in those days, all mobiles were supplied by people's work.
Yeah, because they were so expensive, weren't they?
Yeah, it's quite expensive things. And so I had to go on the next day, and so I have to get a new cell phone, you see. And so they said, "Well, where is it?" I said, "I lost it." "Where did you lose it?" "Well, I don't know. We're somewhere between Otahonga and Tikwiti."
On the side of the road.
So that all went around the company. So it
would have probably been quite easy to find. I'm imagining one of those big sort of brick phones.
Right.
Yeah, I remember when phones first came out, they were very expensive to buy, and then calls were like $100 a minute as well. It wasn't
quite as early as that, but it was sort of
ridiculous amounts. So. What do you think you're most proud of? Is it if you had to pick one, what are you more proud of? Like the stuff that you achieved in business, or the stuff that you've achieved in your advanced years as an athlete?
Well, I suppose I'm proud of them both.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Of course, I have to be proud that we've, the company's kept away from scandal. It's got a good name without skiting about it, but it has, And then, of course, I'm rather pleased, that I've always encouraged, if you're keen on something, you encourage others. It comes naturally. And just maybe, I've been able to assist them financially and with my own example to encourage people into the sport.
Yeah. How would you like to be remembered? Like when the time comes, you become famous again, you make the news again. What would you want them to say about you?
Well, someone once died young, a friend of mine. Well, their mid-40s, And I knew his brother said at the funeral, well, he did more things in his short life than lots of people do in a long life. And so I'd like to think, well, his life wasn't wasted. At least he did lots of things, really. Yeah.
Oh, most definitely, yeah. Well, I think
got a lot to offer. So
what's that?
Life's got a lot to offer.
Yeah.
With all these things. I mean, it's like moving to a retirement home and people think, oh, that's one foot in the grave. But it does give me an opportunity to it'd be like a new world for me. Well, I feel on the social side. And I don't know quite what the challenges will be because I'm not there yet. But I'm sure I'll find something to occupy me.
So is that the plan? You're going to sell the house that you've been in for your entire married life and move into a rest home?
Yeah, but I've got to put the order right. It's this job, when you've been in one house 50 years and the children have fled to the nest, you've got so much space that you get in the habit of never, ever throwing away anything.
Well, your downsizing is horrible.
Downsizing. And I say to my wife, I said, let's bother about downsizing. Let's buy the unit without selling the house, and then after 6 months or so, we'll find out what we do want.
Yeah.
And then what we don't want, we'll give it away.
Oh, that's a great idea. Does she like the idea?
Well, I think it's hard. She's having trouble getting it around.
Yeah.
Because most people have to sell their house, you see.
It's a lucky position to be in.
Nice position.
I think rest homes are sort of. I remember, my granddad on my dad's side, he was in a rest home in Levin, and it was a 1 foot in the grave situation then. But I think they're quite nice now. Like when I went to see Arch Jelly at his retirement village and Barry McGee, they're really nice and they're really social. I think for a social man like yourself, I think you'd love the environment.
Yeah. So what retirement village is Arch Jelly in?
Oh, I'd have to look it up on my phone. It was a beautiful one though, and he had a great time in lockdown there. And yeah, Barry McGee's in the Sir Peter Halberg one, who was his old mate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's even a wing in there called the Barry McGee wing, which he doesn't live in.
Okay.
No, they're great. They go and play bowls and bridge, and I think you'd love it.
Oh.
Hey, well, Garth Barfoot, thank you very much for coming around and being on the podcast. What a life, a hell of a life. You're a man of integrity. I think that's one thing that people would say about you.
Yeah, well, talking about integrity, I didn't like the way that you said you could park in New World, because I sort of thought, well, hang on, I'm not buying anything at the New World. I'm not that I don't like the New World. Actually, I patronise New World at Chelsea, Birkenhead, my local one, and I feel I didn't feel. I feel I'm a New World fan, but not a New World customer for this area. And I thought, I can't park there. I might get stopped. It's like a politician getting stopped coming out of a gentleman's club. I'll be remembered for illegally parking in a New World car park. I'll
tell you what, if it makes you feel any better, I'll walk you there now and I'll buy a pack of chewing gum or something. So.
No. So I thought, I'll come. I'll change it into my walking clothes so I can walk from a car park.
Yeah.
I don't know. My friend's got a phrase that says the Lord will provide. So I come outside and you wouldn't believe it. I got a park in Victoria Street.
So you didn't even have to park?
Couldn't do that. The risk was too great.
Oh, come on.
No.
Really? Have you?
No. What's one thing, people get known. If you become famous, you get one known for, like Mary Antoinette once said, let them eat cake, and she's famous for that.
What does that saying mean?
Let them eat cake.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a mark for the poor people who were struggling with the price of bread. She said, well, they can buy cake.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like.
Well, what's the worst thing you've done?
No.
We're not.
No, I'm not going to.
No, but if you're nervous to park in a New World car park when you're not shopping there, it must have been
When I was in the third form, what you'd now call a bully, it so annoyed me that I punched him. Because these days I'll be charged with assault. He never bullied me again.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the 13-year-old that you bullied 75 years ago is dead now.
I got punched by Garth Barfoot. Well, it happened. I mean, look at the Christchurch one. Deputy leader at one stage of the National Party.
Jerry Brownlee?
Yeah, Jerry Brownlee, yeah. And pupil came up and turned out that when he was at school, a pupil of him, Jerry Brownlee put tennis balls in his mouth to stop him talking in class.
Jeez, must have had a big mouth.
Probably justified. That's what he got remembered by.
Well, you're a good man, Garth Barfoot, and it's been a pleasure to sit down with you today. And it's a life of integrity, as we said before, and the things that you've done. I don't think you could probably imagine the amount of people that you've inspired with your athletic achievements in endurance sport as a senior citizen. And I'm pleased that my cup of coffee didn't kill you.
I just finished it.
Oh, you didn't finish it?
Oh, almost.
All right. Hey, well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. You're a great New Zealander.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for listening all the way through to Runners Only with Dom Harvey and Garth Barfoot. 85 years old, just about to do the London Marathon. I really hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, by all means, give the podcast a rating wherever you get your podcast from, or if your podcast platform allows it, write a review as well. I don't know what that stuff does, but apparently it all helps. Hey, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all your feedback and correspondence as well. You can message me on Instagram, DomHarveyNZ, or by email, domharveynz@gmail.com. Love you guys. Catch you next week.